Racing Chemical here. We're going to go over the power rankings for the 2021 Brazil Grand Prix. I'm interested in your thoughts as to this list from 1 to 10 and whether you guys agree with the order or you disagree, and give me your thoughts on each driver's performance this past racing weekend. Obviously, starting off at number 1 is Lewis Hamilton, and it's pretty self-explanatory. He gets a 10 out of 10 score, dealing with the DRS infringement, having the grid drop penalty, essentially starting from last with the sprint and then coming back on Sunday to actually win the race and win it by quite a margin. It's a huge testament to the fact that Lewis isn't just a decent and good driver simply because of the machinery. That definitely helps, but you still have to have a certain skill set as a Formula One driver to do what Lewis is able to do. Max could also do the same thing in his Red Bull, so I think both of those drivers have proven that they are not simply just the results of their engineering and the cars that they're driving, but simply that they do also have a great skill set that allows them to drive these cars at at the performance and at the level that they're doing. And like I said, I think for Lewis, it's kind of self-explanatory why he gets first position, obviously winning the race and that 10 out of 10 score. We move on to Max Verstappen here for P2, and again, another great week for Max Verstappen because he still did not suffer a huge loss despite the fact that Lewis won the race. Max still put up a huge defense that Lewis had to fight through for a majority of the race. It wasn't until under 15 laps that Lewis is finally able to get past Max. So still Max is right there. He could still win this drivers championship this year, and Lewis is still going to have to continue to work if he wants to try to get himself that record-setting drivers championship himself. But hopefully this obviously goes to the last race of the season to decide who is going to win the 2021 drivers championship between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Coming in at P3, Charles Leclair. Another great performance from Charlie, and I think the Ferraris have really shown and proved that they are looking good for the closure of this year, and that they're going to hopefully be looking even better going into the new regulation changes for the 2022 season. Charles Leclerc gets an 8.2 rating, and him and Carlos both still doing extremely well. And as a Ferrari fan myself, I am so excited to see what these two are going to be able to do next year, and see if the Ferrari can finally compete with the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull. We have no idea if they're going to be at that level, but it would be great to see Ferrari again challenging the top constructors going into next season. And again, Charles has pretty much been one of the most consistent drivers on the grid, constantly finishing in the points this season, and he gets the third place position with the 8.2 score for that, finishing fifth in the race. Next is Pierre Gasly. Pierre has single-handedly been carrying the AlphaTauri team. He also gets a position 3 ranking and an 8.2 score. He finishes 7th in the race, and again, Pierre, another one of those drivers that has been very consistent throughout the majority of this 2021 season, and you really wonder what Pierre would be able to do in a better car. And it's not to say the AlphaTauri is not a good car. I think for where that team sits in the midfield, that is perfect, but imagine Pierre in better machinery. Where would he be finishing and what would he be capable of? I hope we see it someday in the future, but obviously with the driver lineups and things, we're not exactly sure where Pierre would fit in, but for now he's carrying this AlphaTauri team and he's doing very well in his role. Next, we go to Carlos Sainz again. Carlos and Charles both have been on great form this year. People didn't know if they would even work well as teammates, and I think they've proven they can work very well as teammates. Carlos gets the 5th position ranking. He finished 6th in the race behind his teammate Charles Leclerc, and he gets an 8.0 score. And again, it's pretty much the same thing I said about Charlie. These guys have really been working well this year, and I think we're going to continue to see that for the remainder of the season, and we should hopefully see even better results in 2022. I really like Carlos. I gotta say he's actually one of my favorite drivers on the grid. I would say probably top 5, and I would love to see him actually win a race here in Formula One in the near future. Move on to position 6, which was, I guess, interesting. Not to say I don't think he had a good performance, but I guess I didn't expect to see him this high up on the chart. And that is, Esteban Ocon, who gets the 6th position ranking. He finished 8th in the race, and he gets a score of 7.8. And again, Esteban has kind of had an up and down season. Of course, he won in Hungary and then some not so stellar performances after that. But for the most part, I think Esteban is still developing. I think he could still continue to improve. And nonetheless, as long as everything seems to work right for him, he does tend to finish in the points, or at least finish close to that. He has decent race pace. So I think Esteban for position 6, like I said, was a little bit surprising, but nonetheless, when he is on form, he's good enough to finish in the points and to help Alpine. So congrats to Esteban for that. A P7, or I should say rank position 7. P3 in the race on the podium is Valtteri Bottas. Gets a 7.7 score. Valtteri did the ultimate thing that he always does, just playing the team man, for Mercedes, allowing Lewis by, and ultimately keeping Sergio Perez from becoming too much of an issue throughout the race. And again, Valtteri has been doing that for essentially his entire career at Mercedes, and I'm really looking forward to his move to Alfa Romeo and just seeing how he's going to be able to help that team try to get out of that bottom threshold, competing with Haas, and get up back into the midfield. Valtteri, I really like the guy, and I'm really excited for his new journey with that team next year in the 2022 season. But again, he did exactly what he needed to do for Mercedes. He still ends up finishing on the podium. I think that's a great effort and a good week once again for Valtteri Bottas. Coming in at ranked position number 8 is Sergio Perez, who finishes 4th in the race, score of 7.5. And again, Sergio also did another great job. Sergio has really seemed to find his pace and his comfortability in that Red Bull finally, and he has shown it in the last couple of race weekends. So Sergio, again, alongside Max, who is helping not just Red Bull in the Constructors, but also helping Max in the Drivers' Championship against Lewis Hamilton. He's been doing a phenomenal job in the second half of the season, and I am more than excited to see him continue to do the work that he's been doing. And again, I hope to see him eventually standing on position 1 of that podium here, if not at the end of this season, hopefully beginning of 2022. Coming in at ranked position number 9 is Fernando Alonso, who actually finished 9th with a score of 7.3. Fernando has been, I would say Fernando's been pretty consistent this year. Obviously, a couple performances where he didn't finish in the points, but for the most part, it seems like Fernando's really getting dialed into that Alpine. And again, it's another one of these things where it's like you wonder what these type of drivers can do in better cars. Of course, we know what Fernando is capable of as a former world champion, but considering his return back into Formula One, we're going into these new regulation changes for 2022. Where could Fernando be, let's say, if the Alpine does continue to improve, or if he was even in a better car than the Alpine? That's the question I have, and it would be amazing to actually see Fernando win a race. I mean, imagine the headlines and just kind of everything that would come from that, with Fernando winning a Formula One race after it's been a couple of years. So it would be something really exciting to see in 2022, but nonetheless, another great weekend for him and Esteban Ocon, both for the Alpine team. I think when they've been on form and on pace, they've obviously both been finishing in the points and have done really well to keep that Alpine where they are. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing Fernando as well in 2022's season and seeing what he's going to be capable of. And coming in at ranked position number 10, finishing 11th in the race, just outside of the points with a score of 7.2, is Aston Martin's Sebastian Vettel. He obviously missed out on Q3 on Friday, but he managed to finish P10 in the sprint. And Sebastian was just kind of there, just running his race. Obviously, I'm sure he would like to be in a better spot, but nonetheless, I still think it was a decent performance for him. He got pretty unlucky, obviously, with the virtual safety cars, and he could have potentially finished in the points as he was closing in on Lando Norris, but unfortunately, that did not happen. But nonetheless, I hope next year is a much better year for Sebastian. This entire year for Aston Martin, I think, has been a disappointment for them as a team, especially considering as the Racing Point team in 2020, they were, third in the Constructors. So I'm sure this year clearly has not gone the way they want, but I'm hoping that they obviously make the improvements they need to make and that they've already been working on the 2022 car, and we'll see Sebastian hopefully again on the podium, and nothing that takes away a potential podium for him like he had earlier in this season. I hope we get to see that for Sebastian in 2022. I still think he has a couple more years to roll around here if he would like to do so, and it would be awesome to see him as well win a race. There's so many guys on this grid I want to see it win a race, but the reality is only so many are probably going to get the chance to do so. Of course, that's just me being hopeful and optimistic, because I really do like almost essentially every driver on the grid. There may be one guy I'm not like a huge fan of, clearly, but I don't strongly dislike anybody on the grid. I really do like all the drivers. I think they all have their unique personalities, their unique driving styles, and it's refreshing. Unfortunately, obviously, some of these drivers are going to be leaving. Lineups are going to be switching. So there's always a pro and a con to things, but of course, we're all looking forward to the 2022 season. But that wraps up the power ranking for the 2021 Brazil Grand Prix. You guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, whether you agree with this list and your thoughts on these drivers from this past weekend's race, and what you're looking forward to going into the future in these last closing weeks of the season. As always, appreciate you guys having support on the channel. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. But unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.